The neonatal intensive care environment has really changed over the last 30 years. When I was in nursing school, we didn't think about the environment of hospitals and the impact that they have on healing, on health. At that time, we really didn't pay a lot of attention to the background noises, to the ambient noises in a room. You were so focused on the baby that you were caring for and the equipment that you were learning. But as you get more accustomed to understanding that the baby really does react to the environment, the more that any of us that worked in the neonatal unit recognize the impact that those sounds and those lights have on people that work there, on families, and on babies. I can remember the first time that I walked into a neonatal intensive care unit. I saw parents as they came into the unit being alarmed at the level of noise. The unit was comprised of 3 rooms, one large room that had 10 beds, very close working space so that when you were working with one baby, you could touch the next baby, the next incubator or isolate. We had blaring monitors. We had the whirring of ventilators. We had IV pumps. We had all the background noises that you get just from the heating system, the cooling system, as well as the fact that we had stainless steel sinks, so every time we turned on water, you could hear every drop of water. Any sound that was in there would echo just as it would in an empty room. All of those noises really amplify when you're in a closed environment with not a lot of acoustical tiles to absorb that sound. So think of yourself as a very preterm baby whose hearing mechanism starts at about 18 weeks of gestation, continues to develop through the rest of the pregnancy, and you have a developing brain that also is trying to sort out how to take and process these signals that come in, visual signals as well as auditory signals. And the babies get stressed. How do we know that? What evidence is there to support that? Even from the very beginning of my career, I was taught to pay attention to oxygen saturations, to heart rates, to respiratory rates, and all of these would be affected when there were loud noises and loud sounds. Just a few years ago in a neonatal unit out of the country, they found that this one baby kept lowering his oxygens on a pretty regular basis, but physiologically they could see no reason for it. So I stood at the baby's bedside. I said, "What's on the other side of that wall?" It was a refrigerator on the other side of the wall, and every time it was cycling, that's when the baby's oxygen saturations dropped. As soon as they moved the baby to another space, O2 sats go up. It was because I was not used to that environment. I didn't habituate that sound, and it takes somebody from the outside sometimes to really look and see what they're experiencing. When we moved into a new neonatal unit, what we noticed was this environment paid attention to only using visual alarms instead of audible alarms, no overhead paging, that we were supposed to talk in a quiet voice, that there were more pods, and meaning that there were more smaller rooms with either single bedrooms or 3 and 4 beds in one pod versus the open unit. We had acoustical tiles that absorbed a lot of the sounds of the high-frequency jet ventilators that are very noisy, or some of the other ambient background noises in a NICU. Babies' beds, when you go into a NICU these days, you will find many covers that are thick covers, not just to block out the light, but also to deafen and dampen that sound. Incubators and isolate manufacturers have paid attention to the roaring of the fans and the motors that are in the NICU, inside the isolate and in the baby's immediate, as we call it, microenvironment. As soon as you walked into that unit, you started talking much more quietly. You didn't shout at each other because you're not shouting over noise. Parents would comment that it was much calmer because they weren't being bombarded by constant sounds. All of these things are very important and have changed over time. We have to recognize that paying attention to the NICU environment is as critical a skill as any care that we give otherwise, any procedure or any intervention that nurses provide or doctors provide, that this is a critical part of our health professions education and a critical part of our care of the newborn. They aren't separate. And for me, that's the clear message.